Not everyone's a great test taker, but that is, after all, the point of the NFL Combine. So who ran their way into the hearts of the Green Bay Packers, and who has Green Bay running away?
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with a winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Combine is a funny thing because they say things like don't count it twice and, don't change too much of how you feel about a player because remember, no football has been played between, the end of the season and right this minute. And all of that is true. And still, there are certain guys who, if you just can't meet a baseline of NFL athleticism, the chances of you being a moderately successful NFL player plummets. And there are real thresholds here, not just like the Packers arbitrarily decided some of this stuff. No, the NFL has decided some of this stuff over its history. And for example, arm length is one of those things. Short-armed guys there is like a cutoff where it's just like, no, you just can't be an NFL tackle if you have 31-inch arms. Like you just can't. People think it's funny. Oh, the difference between 31 and 32, 33. Like we're talking about it matters. It matters. In fact, you look at the Packers, if you have under 33-inch arms, you're a guard. And if you have over 33-inch arms, you can play tackle. Rasheed Walker, just a shade over 33 inches. Brian Bulaga, just a shade over 33 inches. The industry standard, if you will, is 34. So while we're not going to do winners and losers, really, it is in a way Packers winners and losers because if you look at the offensive line, basically everyone at the top of this draft that we looked at as borderline, are they a guard? Are they a tackle? All of them from a just body type before we test, just body type. They all passed the test. Like Jordan Morgan, huge. A shade under 33-inch arms. Now this gets interesting. Like Graham Barton and Jordan Morgan each. Graham Barton from Duke, Jordan Morgan from Arizona. Each tackles in college. The Packers love to convert. But like 32 and 7/8 inch arms, like is the difference between Brian Bulaga at 33 and a quarter and 32 and 7/8. Like is it that big a deal? Well, if you're going to test really well, I don't think it matters. The Packers have never picked someone as big as Tyler Guyton at Oklahoma. Well, he tested really well. So doesn't that part matter more? This is an interesting question for Green Bay that they're going to have to answer. And we're not going to have the answer to it, but I think those guys, even if they're not tackles, you go, okay, maybe they're not tackles. But at 25, I think you're further enough down the first round pecking order to say, look, if you can get a starting really high caliber guard who's also your swing tackle. So think Lane Taylor on the sort of middle outcome, Josh Sitton, TJ Lang on the high end outcome. Like those guys at various points in a pinch, you can play tackle. You're not your dedicated swing tackle, but in a pinch. And if Sean Ryan beats out one of those guys, for that right guard spot, you do have a swing tackle. That's a lot of value. That's enough for me at 25. Like if they're picking at 8, like you're seeing some of these Troy Fatanu, Talisi Fuaga, those Pacific Northwest guys, those Pac-12 guys who are tackles who might be guards. In the top 10, I'm going, I got to get a premium position in the top 10. But generally, I want a premium position in the first round. But if you can get a high-end athlete, if you can get Elton Jenkins in the first round, probably should do that, especially at the end when you have all these guys. And so I say all that to set this up because the receivers ran really fast. 6, 8, 10 of them might go in the first round. That's good for the Packers because they were never going to take one of those 10 guys in the first round. Now, one of those guys who might have been available at 41 or might have been available at 58, they're off the board now, but it's pushing corners down the list. It's pushing linebackers down the list. It's pushing safeties down the list. Now, the safeties, they didn't test great. We're going to get to that in a second. The offensive line, a bunch of really good testing. A bunch of guys, as I mentioned, that meet the arbitrary thresholds or come really, really close to it and is going to make a team like the Packers make some difficult decisions about where they're going to play. They're not really difficult decisions. They're really champagne problems because the Packers have a really good offensive line anyway. So let's say there could be 6, 8, 10 offensive linemen who go. There's going to be 4 quarterbacks. 4 quarterbacks are going in the first round. That's a lock. So that's 24 picks. How many more guys can you get? That's 0 corners. 0 defensive ends, 0 defensive tackles, who I don't think the Packers are going to take in the first round in all likelihood. So that's good for Green Bay. So macro picture, that's good. Let me just quickly highlight a couple guys. I mentioned Graham Barton. I mentioned Tyler Guyton, but some corners. Cam Hart from Notre Dame was someone I had just watched before the combine. 6'3", 202, and jumped out of the gym 39.5-inch vertical. He ran 4.5 flat at 6'3", 202. He is a zone corner all day, can play press, played press at Notre Dame. Does not have a lot of ball protection, but that is someone who I think Green Bay is going to have an eye on. Kyrie Jackson from Oregon, another one. Former elite JUCO player, went to Alabama, transferred to Oregon, 6'3" and change, almost 6'4", 194, an absolutely monster corner. Ran 4.5 flat, so we're not talking about just some big guy. 4.5 flat, 98th percentile broad jump. That's a Brian Gutekunst special. Loves the broad jump. Those are 2 guys that I would have my eye on. Now, we don't know what the Jeff Hafley preferences are going to be at corner. We know the Packers have certain things that they like. What are the Packers going to want? Like Jeff Hafley coached K'Wan Williams, who was 5'9", 183, probably soaking wet holding his luggage. So are they going to have some different standards here? How much say is Jeff Hafley going to have? How much man are they going to want to play? How much zone are they going to want to play? These are questions we don't have full answers to. But the corners testing the way that they did. And Nate Wiggins, he's skinny. That Packers dream is dead. Cooper DeJean didn't test. And so he from a size standpoint checked the boxes. But until you see him run, until you see him test, that's going to be a question here. The places where the Packers are going to want to spend early draft capital: corner, offensive line. And Brian Gutekunst said in an interview with Larry McCarron, look, they're not going to shy away from taking a receiver if they feel like someone can help them there. Well, if those guys are going to go early, maybe that changes things, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's just so many of them by 41. Someone like Keon Coleman, who did not run fast, did not test well in the 40, but at 6'3", 213, jumped 38 in the vert, had a 90th percentile broad jump, and then was the fastest player running the gauntlet drill. I think that gives you an idea of what that athletic ability is. Is he going to be a first-round pick? I don't think so. 41, 57, 58? The Packers pick at 57. We'll see. Now, it's not all good news. So let's talk about that in a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more live same-game parlays. And right now, just bet the Giannis overs. Every single night, he's 35, 15, and 7. He's going absolutely off. They next play the Clippers. The Clippers do not have anyone to guard him. Not a single person can guard Giannis. Don't tell me Kawhi Leonard. No one is guarding Giannis for the Clippers. Take those overs. I'm telling you. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA and official sportsbook partner of Locked On. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, we have to talk about some of the guys that Packer fans are into that it's just over for. And the top, I think number one on this list is Cameron Kinchens, the safety from Miami. He didn't just go out and test kind of bad. First of all, he's smaller than he's listed. He goes on, he runs 4.65. 4.65. Is just slow. Now, if you've got good jumps, that signals good explosiveness, click and close, go make plays. He broad jumped 9 feet. That is in the 7th percentile for safeties. 7th percentile. Not 93rd, not he's top 7%. No. The 7th percentile. Really, really poor. He's just off the board. Unless he falls to the 5th round. And after this, frankly, he might. He's off the board. I think that only increases the urgency here. And, there's been a lot of talk, buzz. The combine is not just about the guys on the field. It's about things that you hear. And the Packers, I expect them to spend some money in free agency. I think they're going to go buy a safety because this safety class, if you lose Cameron Kinchens, Tyler Newman didn't test. He did drills, but didn't test, didn't do the full gamut. Bo Braid, same deal. Those are your top 3 guys. So if Kinchens stinks athletically, man, it's getting slim. That's a problem for the Packers. So you have to go out in free agency and you have to spend some money. And we also got the reporting from Jeremy Fowler that Darnell Savage is expected to get a, quote, nice deal in free agency. I suppose that could come from the Packers, but it seems like at this point, they had their chance to get a deal done. They could have done it before his contract voided, which would have saved them the $5 million in dead money that he's accelerated onto their cap. With the void years, that money is now accelerated. They're eating it. It seems pretty unlikely. Now, if it's 2 or 3 million, you can deal with that. 5 million? And remember, that's just accounting tricks, void years and those things, but it's still money on the cap. I just don't think he's going to be back. So you have to go out and you have to pay. Now, one of the players I didn't mention on the winner's side, Dadrian Taylor-Demerson, who, by the way, everydayers will remember I mentioned last week. Just wanted to get him. He was in our mock draft Monday. I was like, I just want to throw his name out there, someone to watch. Went out, ran in the 4.4s. body big enough. This is a name to watch now. You go, okay, he was a round 4, round 5 guy. The safety class is Cheeks, 88, 91. Absolutely someone to keep an eye on here for the Packers. The other name, someone we've talked about on this program, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., corner from Missouri. First of all, he came in 5'11", 183. 183 is just not big enough to be a Green Bay Packer. We've talked about this idea of like going off script, and if is the nickel, can they play smaller? Is it okay? It is to a point. Ran 4.54. Broad jumped in the 51 percentile, 51st percentile, 51th. I was going to say 52nd, but it's 51 and a half. So I went with 51. 51st percentile. Just not a good athlete based on this testing. Now, apparently was dealing with a soft tissue injury, so he's a Packer already. It's hard for me to see it given where his draft stock was. Like, he was a legit 25th overall kind of selection. If this is even close to the athleticism that you're getting, like, he's got to just go to his pro day and blow it out of the water to be in play at 25. And I frankly, I don't know if that's enough to save him. This is now a conversation at 41 if he goes out and runs 4.4 flat and, jumps whatever. He looks like a better athlete than this on tape, but he was probably going to be a slot player. Are they willing to go outside their norms at 25? I would be very surprised. Brian Gutekunst does not do that. 8.5 relative athletic score or better if you're a first round pick. His average relative athletic score as a first round pick is over 9.1. Like, this is just not a first rounder. And so if he's going in the first round, he will not be a first round pick by the Green Bay Packers. It just is not happening. Another one, and I can't remember if I had put him on a list of mine or not. But Audric Estime, the running back from Notre Dame, ran 4.72. Brian Gutekunst said he wanted a bigger back. So, okay, Estime is a big dude. And you go, okay, great. This is great. Get him out there. 4.72 is just not going to work. It's just, the Packers need, if you're going to have a big back in this draft, and Braylon Allen, underwhelming jumps, did not run the 40. We'll see what he runs at Madison at his pro day. It's got to be in the 4.4s, I would think. Because the Packers still need some pop. Like, a big back is one thing, but you still need to have some juice. And this running back class, my goodness, there is some juice. Two guys that we've mocked on this show a number of times that we've talked about. Absolutely crushed the testing. Jalen Wright, the running back from Tennessee. Man, the Alvin Kamara comps, they're coming. They're coming because he tested incredibly explosively. And then the running back from Louisville, Isaac Garendo, who had been a Wisconsin running back, size adjusted at 4.3. He ran 4.33 at 220 plus. That is hauling epic levels of ass. That is explosive at a big frame, 220. Now he's not the power back that Brian Gutekunst is talking about, but it's still a nice thing to have if you're going to be a complementary piece, especially that frame. You would hope helped him stay healthy. It has not, unfortunately, helped him stay healthy in college. But the running back class, there is some real juice here. It's not with the big backs, the power backs, unless Braylon Allen goes out and runs crazy. So I think you wait until day 3. If you're going to take a running back on day 2, it's someone that you think can be the future of your franchise. Now, we also got the reporting from Tom Silverstein and it was funny the way that it all played out. At first, Tom worded it like if the Packers can't get a new deal, that they were negotiating with Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, to get a price reduction. And if they couldn't, they would just cut him and then take their chances, basically. And Packers Twitter got a hold of this, and he was like, wait. What I meant was that is a scenario that could happen, and I think it's unlikely. And then it's like, okay, what are we doing here? How did this happen? How did this go down like that? It was a very weird situation. But also in that report was A.J. Dillon probably not back. And that makes this related. So if A.J. Dillon's not back and you have Aaron Jones and you're doing everything you can to keep Aaron Jones, great. You want a bigger back. Where can you get that? Well, on day 2 with one of your extra picks, I would rather have one of these home run hitter types, someone like Jalen Wright, who you think could, or Trey Benson from Florida State, who also tested really well, who can be that home run hitter, but also potentially could be someone who can be that Aaron Jones type of runner for you. And then day 3 pick, like throw some money at the problem on day 3 and find it that way. You don't have to use premium draft capital. So to get Audric Estime, you probably needed to use a 3rd round pick. Well, that's not true anymore. Maybe he falls to the 5th and you take him anyway because you're just sort of like, well, at that point, you're getting good value. He's a nice player. There's a lot of A.J. Dillon similarities there, frankly. So it changes the way that I think you approach some of this stuff from a value standpoint. You may have to dig into this market a little bit sooner than you wanted. But given the runway with Aaron Jones, if you're going to pay him for the next couple of years, and by the way, that is what I have heard the plan in Green Bay is. Like don't read into what's being said. What the Packers want to do, because they could just move the money. He's got void years on the deal. They could just restructure this base salary, which is high this year, $14 million. Restructure it, move it, and save a bunch of money. What they would prefer to do, based on what I've been told, is they'd rather get a contract extension, get rid of these void years, and put a plan in place to actually have him on a contract that makes sense so they don't have to redo a deal in a year. He's going into what is essentially a lame duck season. Get an extension in place for 2 years, 3 years. You kind of absorb those void years. You're like, okay, well, we'll put that money in the new deal. And then you don't really have a problem because you already planned it for the cap. So you're in good position to do that. All of that being said, let's do a mock draft Monday coming up in a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what is important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do it more. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, we got a little crazy on Mock Draft Monday today. And we did because there's this idea that, okay, in a deep class for a position, teams can wait. And that teams might, in fact, wait. That's what you usually hear. Oh, well, they might think, oh, it's a deep receiver class, so we'll just wait. No one does that. Or more specifically, I guess, as a league, the league doesn't do that. When you have a really good receiver class, guess what happens? A bunch of receivers get drafted because the best players in the draft are receivers. So you go, okay, well, this premium position, if it's a good fullback class, who cares, right? It's a good center class. Well, kind of who cares? Although we've had multiple centers taken in the first round the last couple of years. This is a really good receiver class. It's a really good tackle class. Those guys are going early. Like there might legitimately be 10 guys at each position who go in the first round. And that's not an exaggeration. Like 8 is the minimum. There are going to be like at least 6 in both, probably more like 8, and we could get to 10 because the pass rush class, the edge class, kind of stinky. Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, Chop Robinson, really the only first round guys. Corners, it's Terrion Arnold, it's Quinion Mitchell, who, by the way, kissed that goodbye. Like, that's not going to be a Packers thing. We'll see with Nate Wiggins at 173. I don't know about that. Cooper DeJean. We kind of run out of guys now. So, offensive line. Do the Packers desperately need offensive linemen? No. But can you always use them? You're paying Jordan Love all this money. Yes. So, Graham Barton, the tackle from Duke, as I mentioned, 6'2" and 7/8 arms, but he's 6'5". I'm going to give him the shot to play tackle, but I'm going to let him compete with Sean Ryan at guard right away. I'm going to give him the chance to play center. Josh Myers, I think, is 6'5", 6'4", 6'5". It would be a big center for sure, but I'm going to give him the chance. And we're going to see. We're going to see what he's got. Like, he's not going to be your future left tackle, probably going to be a guard, but maybe. Who knows? And then maybe you let him play left tackle. Maybe you move Zach Tom to left tackle. You got right tackle, Rasheed Walker, who's got a ton of playing time now, a ton of experience under his belt. He's your swing tackle. You're in great position. I really like Graham Barton. He can play all 5. This is Elton Jenkins. If he was a white dude from Duke, that's Graham Barton. He can play all 5. Packer. Tested well, all 5. Packer. 41. I would be shocked if he's there, but he was in this mock. Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. Now, he's 6'7 plus, 320 plus, would be the biggest offensive lineman the Packers have basically ever drafted. But he tested really well, and he moves. You see the movement skills on tape. He moves extremely well. Your swing tackle from day one, at the very least, you let him compete with Rasheed Walker at left tackle to be that guy, and maybe he is. He has the talent to be a bona fide left tackle. And to get that guy at 41, because this is such a deep class, I'm figuring the rest out. I'm taking these guys. Nothing is more important than protecting Jordan Love. We saw when Jordan Love is protected, he is incredible. So protect that guy. And you have the extra pick, so use it. At 57, I got Kyrie Jackson, who I mentioned. The corner from Oregon. Huge. And if he doesn't work, try him at safety. And here's the thing that they didn't do with Josh Jackson that they needed to do sooner. You had to cut bait sooner. It wasn't working at corner. You needed to move him to safety sooner. I don't know why they didn't. But I think Kyrie Jackson can play corner for the Packers in this scheme. Yes, zone corner, but can play man, can play press man. Showed that athleticism. 90 plus percentile athlete at corner at that size. And played special teams at Alabama. So if you're getting him at 57, yeah, he might have to play some special teams early on. He did that. At 88, this is a steal. Jerrion Jones, nickel. But he's 6'1", nickel. Can play in the slot. You can play some, give him a shot at outside corner, but he can play in the slot. Tested really, really well. This Florida State secondary was loaded. And we don't know what the parameters for a nickel are going to be. The Packers have never really used a premium pick on one. Casey Hayward is probably the closest he played nickel as a rookie, but they always wanted him to be an outside corner. So he's big enough, so let's go. And then at 91, Marshawn Lloyd. I was asked about Marshawn Lloyd before he weighed in, and I was like, no, he's too small, 210. He showed up at the combine at 220 and then ran in the 4.4s. Rocked up. And the tape is good. He's a good player. Is he the big back, the power back that Brian Gutekunst talked about? No. But I think he can approximate a lot of the stuff you're going to get with Aaron Jones. You don't have to change anything when he's in the game. It could be your heir apparent to Aaron Jones. And with that extra third round pick, like running backs in the top 100, this is where you want to do it. Third round. End of that third round. The Packers scout the West Coast as well as anyone. I would love this. I think, to me, yes, 2 tackles, 2 corners. You don't have a safety, but maybe you do. Maybe one of those guys is in fact a safety. And maybe one of those guys, maybe Graham Barton is a guard. Maybe he's a center. You've revamped 2 key premium positions. Plus, maybe you have your running back of the future. Hopefully you've spent some money in free agency to address safety, and now you're cooking. Now you're cooking. All right, back tomorrow. A lot more this week on Locked On Packers. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Like us on Instagram. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers. You'll find us on Instagram, at Locked On Packers. You'll find us on TikTok, Locked On Packers. You'll find us on YouTube, Locked On Packers, so you can stay Locked On Packers.